Hi, welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If you haven't, I'm Gemma, I talk about books, and today I thought I would do the Unpopular Opinions book tag. So I don't actually know who created this tag, but if I can find out, I will pop their details and video below. But otherwise, I'm just going to get straight on with questions, which I have got on my laptop in front of me. And question 1 is a popular book or series that you didn't like. And for this, I am going to have to say The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. It was a really big disappointment. I was wanting creepy and spooky and haunted house and isolated horror, and it really wasn't any of those things. It wasn't at all creepy or spooky. There was a little bit of atmosphere, but not enough to sort of give me what I wanted in terms of horror. And I hated every single one of the characters. This book just did not do what I hoped it would do. Question 2, a popular book or series that everyone else seems to hate but you love. And I don't know if everybody does hate it, but I do tend to see more negative opinions on this book than I do positive, and that is Cujo by Stephen King. And I absolutely love this book. I reread it recently and absolutely loved it. For me, it's King doing what he does best, which is turning the mundane, normal, everyday into something horrific. And that's what's scary to me. It's not monsters, it's the real life thing that wants to kill you. And a rabid dog wanting to kill you is terrifying. However, the other thing with this book is that you spend the entire time feeling sorry for the dog. We are generally a population of animal lovers who hate to see animals in distress. And this book is full on animal in distress. So I can kind of understand why some people don't like it. They don't want to read about a dog who is basically dying for the entire book. But to me, the writing is just brilliant. The characters are really well written, and even the little subplots all join together really, really well. And sometimes subplots and secondary characters can feel just unnecessary and like filler and a waste of time. But every single character and every single subplot in this book works. And I love it. Every time I read it, I love it. Question 3, a love triangle where the main character ended up with the person you did not want them to end up with. This question could not be more irrelevant to me. I hate romances. I hate anything to do with love triangles and stupid, slushy people fawning over each other. However, having said that, in my next wrap-up, my August wrap-up, it does feature a romance, which kind of has a love triangle in it. However, we'll get to that then, not now. In terms of this question, I have no answer because I do not read enough books to ever have an opinion on that sort of subject. It just isn't something that interests me at all. I would prefer romance to not feature in my books at all. Question 4. A popular book genre that you hardly reach for. So I'm not going to say romance for this. I'm going to say fantasy. I love folklore when it's a horror element, and I love reading about witches and magic and that sort of thing when it's in a more historical, social subject. I have absolutely no interest in fairies and dragons and magic spells. It just does not interest me at all. And I can't actually remember the last time I even picked up a book that was a full-on sort of fantasy. So it's just not a genre that I aim towards at all. Question 5. A popular or beloved character that you do not like. So I had to really think about this one. And the character that came to mind in the end was Jane Tennyson from the Prime Suspect series by Linda LaPlante, which, if you don't know, is a crime series, 3-part series that was eventually turned into a TV series here in the UK starring Helen Mirren, and it lasted for years. They've made multiple series that were all just based on the characters from these 3 books. And it's difficult because she's considered to be the sort of epitome of female detective. She's strong-willed, ambitious, had to put up with a lot of shit from men, really fought for her job and her place in the police, and you're supposed to look at her and be inspired and admire her and think that she's just this incredibly strong, tough, resilient woman. And actually, I just did not like her. I just thought she was, most of the time, a complete bitch. She is not particularly nice to her own family, to the men that she has relationships with. She's not very nice to anybody who she works with, and that includes other women. She really doesn't make an effort to sort of inspire them. It's all very antagonistic. And the other problem I had was the fact that she was just a raging alcoholic. Every single book resulted in multiple scenes in her getting home from work and downing a bottle of wine and then waking up the next morning with a horrible hangover. And I just got fed up with this woman who was incredibly self-absorbed and did herself no favours at all. And I read all 3 books in the series, and by the end I was kind of glad that there weren't any more because I just had enough of her. I just didn't like her. And it was a shame because I actually really like Linda LaPlante. I like her writing, and if you ever get to see her talk or meet her at an event, she is brilliant. She is hilarious. She's as mad as a box of frogs, and it was a real shame to not actually like the character that she'd created. Question 6. A popular author that you can't seem to get into. And this is a really easy answer for me, and it's Gillian Flynn. I honestly do not understand why she is so popular. I read Sharp Objects and Dark Places not long after they both came out, so over 10 years ago, and I didn't like either of them. I didn't like her writing. I don't actually remember what either of them were about. It's been a long time. But I do remember thinking that Sharp Objects was just not very well written. I didn't think much of the plot, and I really hated the main character. But as I say, I don't remember a huge amount about them, so many years on. And then suddenly Gone Girl becomes this massively popular book, a massively popular film, and I just cannot bring myself to read it. Normally I'm okay with not liking the first book I read by somebody, but then trying them again, just to see if it was that one-off book. But because I didn't like either of the books that I'd read, I just don't really feel the need to try her for a third time. Yeah, she just doesn't do it for me, I'm afraid. So question 7 is a popular book trope that you're tired of reading. And I briefly mentioned this earlier, and it's alcoholic detectives. I am just kind of bored and fed up with reading about police officers and detectives who just go home at the end of the day, down a bottle of wine or whiskey, and then have huge hangovers the next day. I mean, I know that alcoholism is a huge issue with police officers. You know, their job is massively demanding and stressful, and they see and deal with some of the most horrific things that any of us can imagine. But I'm just kind of bored and fed up with reading about these people drinking all the time. And as soon as it gets to that scene where they're like cracking open the bottle or getting the bottle opener out, I'm just sat sort of rolling my eyes thinking, oh, here we go again, because I'm just kind of fed up with it, to be honest. Question 8. A popular series that you have no interest in reading. I mostly read crime, thrillers and horror. Horror doesn't usually entail series. Crime and thrillers are probably more likely from what I read, but there are very few that I just would not want to read at all. There might be the odd series that I read a couple and then just decide this isn't quite for me, I'm maybe a little bit bored or not loving the writing, but there isn't really a crime or thriller series that I would have no interest in picking up at all. So just in sort of a general answer to this, I think I would just have to say something like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. Again, anything that's fantasy, which seems to be the main sort of genre that tends to revolve around series. As soon as I start hearing about books that have got the words sort of crowns and thorns and roses and things in, I'm just turned off straight away. I have no interest. I just assume that they're going to involve dragons and some sort of weird love triangle, which, as we've already discussed, I have no interest in anyway. And question 9. The saying goes, the book is always better than the movie, but what movie or TV show adaptation do you prefer more than the book? I recently did a wrap-up where I discussed this, and if you keep an eye on my channel over the next couple of weeks, there will be a dedicated video on this subject, but the film/book that definitely comes to mind is Jaws. I still have no idea how they managed to turn that rubbish book into such a good film, because it was ridiculous. The characters were all moronic. The subplots were just completely pointless and irrelevant. And the only good scenes in the book were the ones where the shark was killing somebody. And then for number 10, it says tag people, which I never do at the end of these. So if you have not done the Unpopular Opinions book tag, then feel free to do it. And pop your link in the comments below and I will check out your video. If you have already done it, pop your link in the comments below and I will check out your video. Let me know what you are currently reading and I will see you in another video.